Hello, and welcome to another episode of That Made Your List, a weekly podcast where an average ordinary film fan, me, interviews other average ordinary film fans. My name is Dave Goodger, and joining me this week we've got Jake Maringoni. Hello, Jake.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. This is something different that I thought I'd like to try out. I'm a big fan of the podcast. I saw a lot of the episodes, Ryan's, Brooklyn's, and Jeremy's, and Dan's, and I thought that was really good, and they're good friends of mine, so I thought, might as well give it a shot.
Yeah, fantastic. No, thanks for joining me. So before we get started with the questions, why don't you tell us all just a little bit about yourself?
So I am, if you can tell from my accent, I'm Australian. I have lived in Perth, Western Australia for my whole life. I turned 20 last week, so I've been living there. Last year I finished the advanced diploma in film, which was at North Metro TAFE, which is good stuff. I've always loved film. It was something that I found, and is one of those things where it speaks to you, and you understand it, and it's your biggest passion. And I think it all started when, I can't remember the story because I was too young, but my mum took me to go see Thomas the Tank Engine and the Magic Railroad when I was 2 or 3. It was that Mara Wilson film with Alec Baldwin and Peter Fonda. And that was, from there, my mum knew that I was going to love film because all the kids were making noises and crying, and I was just dead silent, just paying attention to the screen. And I think from that moment, my mum knew that I was going to have a future in film.
Yeah. That's superb. Fantastic. Just real quickly, just looking, is this the same Jake Maringoni that's on IMDb as an editor, director, and cinematographer?
Yes, for the one project. Yeah, that was made by my friend Sam, who was, I think, the DP on that. It was a project that we had done when we were at TAFE that unfortunately never got any grounds because there were just one of the producers dropped out, and there was just so many things that didn't go right, and it would have been fun to work on that, but we also got actors and everything, and then, the producers just couldn't get any of the budget ready, and he had to drop out just because of stuff that was going on with him, and unfortunately, but that is me, yes.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's the first person that's on here so far that's got their own credit on IMDb, so it's the first for me. Brilliant. Okay, so jumping straight in, one of the most difficult ones for people to answer. This is, what's your favourite film?
This is a good question to start with. It's the biggest and most important. It is the 2014 film Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance.
Oh yeah.
It is just one of the most perfect films ever made, in my eyes. I love everything about it. I found out about. I knew of the film earlier because I saw the trailer and I thought, okay, this looks interesting. It's Michael Keaton, Emma Stone, and Ed Norton, and it's about theatre. And I didn't really think much of it, and then a bunch of reviews started coming up and everyone saying this is amazing, and then, of course, when we found out that it was made to look like it's all one take, that piqued my interest, because at film school you really love the techniques that filmmakers use, and the one take is the one that every director who wants to show off uses, so I was very curious about that, and saw it, and my mind exploded. I thought it was one of the best experiences I've ever had watching a movie. Mm-hmm. Just everything that I love about cinema is in that film. And I can relate so much to the main character, Regan, who's played by Michael Keaton. Yeah. His struggles with both his personal life and his artistic life, and how he tries to improve both of them by making this theatre play. And there's a great line in the film where he says, it may not be important to you, but it's important to me. And that just speaks so much to me personally, just the fact that we are all artists and we're all trying to create our magnum opus, and for some people it can take up their entire life, and just there's so many surreal elements and qualities, and the cinematography is amazing, and the editing is so underrated because the fact that it's made to look like it's one take, the editing in that is so tricky. You have to be really on board with how you want each of the camera shots to move, and the speed of everything. It's such a tricky thing, and the performances, my God, they go for 10 minutes each take, so they're getting all of this dialogue out, and the music, the frenetic energy, and the symbolism and metaphors and the themes and interpretations. It's a film that's just so endless with what you can talk about, and it's a film that I bring up with a lot of my friends, and a lot of people make fun of me because of that, because it's like, really, Birdman? And I don't know if it's just because the title's weird to people. It's not about Harvey Birdman or anything like that. Because, I mean, I was so happy when it won Best Picture. That was probably the happiest I've ever been when that film won awards. Because I am a big fan of the Oscars, and I did not think it was going to win. I honestly thought Boyhood was going to win. Yeah. And so when it won Best Picture, I was just so ecstatic. I was so happy for it, and I just hope that got a lot of people to see it.
No, absolutely. I mean, it won 4 Oscars. Obviously, say Best Picture, Best Director, Best Writing Original Screenplay,
Cinematography.
Best and then another 5 nominations as well. So it did really well that year for it.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
No, absolutely. And it was. I think it's the first time Michael Keaton had been a star, actually carrying a picture for quite a while. It's not something that
the last big starring role for him, I mean, as a lead, was probably, I don't know, Jack Frost back in '97 or Multiplicity. I mean, he did a lot of bit roles, like he did the Herbie film, he did First Daughter. He did a lot of supporting roles, and even like in the other guys. And then I don't know that, and then Inarritu kind of saw him and was like, he would actually be a good choice, because I think he and the writers had envisioned him when they were writing the script.
Yeah.
And it's one of those perfect meta, life imitates art, imitates life, in the sense that the film is about a struggling actor who is remembered for this role that he did years ago, which is, of course, very much like Keaton when he played Batman, and then he left it. And the film is his resurgence, both in the film and in real life. And I love that meta narrative. I love when life can imitate art so perfectly that it seems like it was destined to happen. Because after the film, Keaton got all this recognition. He started going in big films like Spider-Man and Spotlight and the McDonald's film, The Founder.
Yes.
So it seemed everything worked perfectly for the film. And I think that also just holds like a special place in my heart. And I think, there's no film in my eyes that have come close to it being such a personal experience for me.
No, great film. Good start.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's crack on then. The next one. What's the last film you watched?
Last one I watched was, it was Purple Rain.
Okay.
Purple Rain. I'm a big Prince guy. I love music, and I've always been a big fan of Prince. I never seen Purple Rain.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of the Purple Rain soundtrack. I love Baby I'm a Star, I Would Die for You, Take Me With You, Purple Rain, of course, Darling Nikki, and Let's Go Crazy. They're all so amazing and just perfect, and it has that energy, and I'm just like, well, I've got to see the movie because I love the soundtrack. And when I watched the movie, I found it to be good. Yeah. I think the cinematography and the lighting, everything is just so just gorgeous. I don't know I can't remember who the DP was, but it looks amazing. The purple and all that, it's wonderful. Some of the acting is hammy. Some of the acting is pretty bad.
Yes.
I can't remember who plays the rival musician to Prince, but he was pretty hammy. I think he was a natural singer, but some of the performances are okay, and then at best are okay, and the story is just it's largely generic, just a struggling singer trying to make it to the top. Yeah,
it's a loose Prince biography, really, and
with his family and all that.
I mean, likewise, I'm a massive Prince fan as well.
Yeah,
of all the massive spate of celebrity deaths that we had sort of 2 years ago and stuff like that, it seemed to be one after the other. None of them were really hit me until come back and Prince has died. I was like, this is the guy that was part of my musical youth growing up. He was one that really sort of shocked and sat down and like, oh my god. Yeah,
that was crazy because, I mean, for me it was Bowie. Bowie's has always been my favourite, but Prince was always second. A very, very close second, and Prince was just someone who, because I feel like an old man. I'm only 20, but I'm an old man when it comes to music because I hate modern music. It's not my type of taste. I love the 70s and 80s, and Prince was just a lot of his songs come from that era that I just absolutely are beautiful, and Purple Rain just has a lot of good stuff in it that that I found really good, but it seemed like almost a vanity project for him.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make a film about my life and the struggles of being an artist, and I can see that certainly turning people off. And I don't like to use the word pretentious, but there's certain pretentious qualities when it comes to him wanting to make that film.
Yeah. No, it's another one that's best Oscar winner.
The last category that I think it was the last year that they used that category, the best original song score.
Yes. No.
Which is crazy to think that Prince has an Oscar.
Yeah. No, it's it definitely won't be for acting, as you say. It's it's not what it's best known for. So
I think the actress, oh god, I can't remember her name. The girl that plays Prince's girlfriend.
Oh god, Apollonia.
Apollonia, yeah, because she was in the band Apollonia 6. I think she got a Razzie. I think she won the Razzie for worst new star or worst supporting actress, or she got nominated for that. But yeah, that's a weird turn of an Oscar nominated film and a Razzie nominated film.
Yeah, all in the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy. There's a couple of those, but yeah, no, Purple Rain was. It's got good music, of course. It's Prince, and the music is the best part of the film, and the whole ending is great. Like when it plays Purple Rain, and then I Would Die for You, and then Baby I'm a Star. It's the perfect way to end a musical.
Yes. No. Fantastic. So, what's your favourite action film?
This was a little tricky because I feel like everyone would say Mad Max, Fury Road, Terminator 2, even the first Terminator, and Rambo, and there's Commando. There's so many, and I just wanted to go with one that not a lot of people have seen, and I think should get a lot more recognition, and a film that I just really, really like, and it's just a fun action film, and it's not trying to be anything more than that. And it's in Australia, it's called Welcome to the Jungle.
Yep.
But in America, and I think most of the world, it'd be called The Rundown.
Okay.
And it's a 2003 film directed by Peter Berg, starring The Rock, Sean William Scott, Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
And as I watched, I think I was like 12 when I first saw it, and it was just on TV, and I just was like in shock because I didn't really think much of it. And there's so many great action like scenes. There's a scene where about halfway through the movie where The Rock there's a guy with whips, and he's got like these two whips that he just starts like whipping people. It's so great. And The Rock throws a chair at him, and he just splits it in half. And that was all practical and everything. And there's a scene where he fights these people in this jungle, and it's probably in my eyes the best action scene ever because it's just this one big guy facing all these little guys in this like jungle area, and they're swinging on they're swinging on rope, and he's smashing into a tree, and the whole like last 20 minutes is great because I'll say what the story is. It's about a bounty hunter played by The Rock. Who is trying to do it's that one last job, and then his debt is clear, and he wants to become a chef and open his own restaurant. And his last mission is to go and get this guy's son who's in the jungle. I think it's a South American jungle. I can't remember exactly what it is, but who's played by Sean William Scott, who's a treasure hunter trying to find this idol. Essentially, it's the idol from Indiana Jones: Raiders of the Lost Ark. And there's this whole conspiracy with the guy who runs the place, played by Christopher Walken, who's trying to find it. I think it's called the Gato. And then I think it's Rosario Dawson. I think it's Rosario Dawson who plays the rebel leader. And there's all this, and they all come together, and The Rock realizes that he has to do the right thing, and that's help this town and free it from Christopher Walken. And there's so many great action scenes. In the finale, he faces these three guys with whips, and it's so done. He dodges the whips, and he picks up a gun, and then the guy with the whip takes the gun out of him, and it's just there's so many great little action tidbits. And throughout the film, he hates guns. He doesn't like using guns because every time he uses guns, bad things happens. And that's almost his character arc in a sense, is that he has to pick up a gun and shoot people, or else they're going to kill Sean William Scott. And it's just a fun film. It's not going to be this Oscar-winning Mad Max. It's going to be just a fun action film that I can watch on a Saturday and enjoy it.
Oh, absolutely. I think it was The Rock's third. Was it his third film? But he did The Mummy, and The Scorpion King.
He did the Mummy 2, and then The Scorpion King. And I think it was the same year that Walking Tall came out.
Yeah.
And it was one of his earlier big action roles, and it's surprising that it's an original film, and I think the budget was like 50 mil, and it didn't really make a lot. And then Peter Berg, of course, did films like Hancock and Friday Night Lights and Lone Survivor and Patriots Day and Deepwater Horizon, and he's expressed interest in doing a sequel, and I think The Rock would want to do a sequel, but the fact that the first film didn't make a lot of money, and I just don't think it would be just audience would really want to see it. I would absolutely love to see a sequel. I just don't know where you would go after the first one, especially how it ends. But that would be certainly a fun. It's a fun watch that I highly recommend.
No, as you say, I mean, it's. I think the budget was somewhere around about. I think it was 85 million US.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
It only took, by all accounts, I'm looking at IMDb at the moment, just over 80 million.
Yeah.
So not
it didn't really make a lot.
Not really make a lot. But I think I've seen parts of this. It's not one that I've sat down and watched it all of. I remember, I'm massive growing up and growing up. I was already quite oldish, but The Rock during his WWE years.
Yeah.
Massive.
That was big. His big. I would say that's when he really became a celebrity. Is when he was this big, because he's a wrestler where you don't even need to have seen wrestling to know who he is.
Yes.
And of course, he, like a lot of wrestlers, he went into acting and he got small roles. And then, of course, films like Walking Tall and The Scorpion King and Welcome to the Jungle kind of helped him solidify him as an action star. And then it wasn't until Fast 5 where he really became this a revitalized action hero again.
No, absolutely. He's probably, him and Cruise, I'd say, are the only two movie stars now.
Yeah.
Someone that can open a film on name alone.
I'd say modern action stars, definitely. Because if we're talking the whole of action movies, Harrison Ford would definitely be there.
No, absolutely. But with ones that are still making action films.
Yeah. It's them too.
Yeah. There's no one else anymore. Obviously, Stallone used to do it.
Yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger and all that. Yeah, I think it's the main reason why that Tower movie that's coming out in a couple of months, starring The Rock. Yeah,
the guys on Collider call it Sky Hard now. That's all in my head. Skyscraper.
It's essentially it's Die Hard.
Yeah.
Except he has one leg. That film's gonna make money solely because it's him.
Yes.
I didn't even hear about the film until like a month ago, and it was oh my god, it's a new film starring The Rock. Yeah, that's why it's going to make a lot of money.
I'm in. As soon as you say that, it's a new film starring The Rock, and I'll see it. So it's
exactly. That's why even the Rampage film, people are going to want to see that.
Yeah, I mean that could end up being another Baywatch though.
Oh yeah, true. Or Jumanji.
Yeah, well Jumanji was it's really well liked. It was really well liked, Jumanji.
It made a lot of money. Surprisingly, it made like over $800 million. I never saw it because it just didn't pique my interest. I grew up with the first one, but and that one's also called Welcome to the Jungle. So that really confused me and a couple of my friends. But yeah, I don't know. Like The Rock is just he also just has so much charisma. He's one of those actors who, no matter what the project is, he'll give a lot of his energy and always 100% into it. Yeah. And that's why I think I really like Welcome to the Jungle, because it's his earlier film and he knows that that every film that he makes could be his last, and he's giving it everything. And he does his own stunts and except for the scene where him and Sean William Scott drop down this it's like mountain because their car goes off the cliff, and it's his brother doing the stunts, and oh my god, there's so many like hits with the trees, and you can feel it, and but yeah, he's just one of those guys who always gives everything he can into his films.
Yeah, no, it's you can see how he's took the ball by the horns and just running with it as long as they'll let him run with it now. It's really good.
And he's been in the film industry for less than 20 years.
Yeah,
and that's so short in like film, in I guess the grandiose of film history, and the fact that he's already like one of the biggest stars. It's crazy. Yeah. It's cool, and I'm happy to see further films from him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, what's your favourite horror?
This is tricky. This is probably I think this is one of the hardest ones I had to come up with because I'm not a big horror guy.
Yeah.
Horror is my least favourite genre, and it's mainly because horror. I think horror is just what is scary, what terrifies you.
Yeah.
And there's just not a lot of horror films that scare me, because I think I'm just desensitized by them, because I watched a lot of horror films when I was 7 or 8, and that's because my parents just had no barrier for me. But I think I went with one. I kind of went with a subversion here. I went with a 2007 horror film called Funny Games US.
Okay, not seen it.
And it's interesting. You can't say it's scary.
Yeah.
But it's at least interesting. And there's a great story about how that film was made. The director of the film, Michael Haneke, who you'll be hearing about very soon, directed a film in '97 called Funny Games. And originally he wanted it to take place in America, because the film has these themes that I'll go into a little later that would only work for an American audience.
Right.
Unfortunately, he couldn't get the funding in America, so he had to make it in his home country. I think it was German.
Right.
So it did well. It did okay. It got into Palme d'Or. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or at Cannes.
Okay.
And then he moved on, and he did a bunch of other really good projects. And then in 2007, he got enough popularity, and he got enough funding to say, I want to remake Funny Games, and do it in America this time. And originally, what he wanted it to be. In fact, the house for the setting of the first film, which is a house, it's the exact same blueprints that they used to make the cabin or the house in the remake. It's the exact same house, because it's a shot-for-shot remake. It's literally just like Gus Van Sant's Psycho. It's shot for shot, and it's interesting because
it's not just like Gus Van Sant's Psycho.
It's not. It's well, first off, it's a lot more. The cinematography is much more cleaner.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of grain in the '97 Funny Games, and this one it's more crisp and it's clean. He's working with a really good cinematographer, Darius Khondji, who has done a lot of Woody Allen films and Seven and Evita. But this was a big thing for him, because the film is about these two guys, played by Brady Corbett and Michael Pitt, who are just strangers. They wear all white, and they visit this family, played by Naomi Watts and Tim Roth, and their little son, who go to a cabin for the week.
Yep. And
they just terrorize them. They hold them captive. One of them breaks Tim Roth's leg, so he can't escape. One of them, early in the film, accidentally drops Naomi Watts' cell phone in the sink, and that, of course, they can't call for help. So everything was planned, and they are unknowing about it. And what is something that hasn't really been done in a lot of horror films is that Michael Pitt, who's the main of the two psychopaths, he constantly looks at the camera and he smiles, and he is the only one who knows. He breaks the fourth wall.
Right.
He knows he's in a movie.
Right.
And he constantly, because early in the film, Naomi Watts is trying to find her dog, because you could constantly throughout the film hear the dog barking, and then all of a sudden you can't hear it, and you're like, what's going on? And she's worried, and as she's looking throughout the house, and she goes outside, and of course this is just after when they the two psychopaths, I think it's George and Paul. No, it's Peter and Paul.
Right.
They have held them captive. I think it's Paul who goes outside. Oh god, I can't remember. It's Peter or Paul, and it's Michael Pitt's character. He goes outside, and Naomi Watts is looking, and he's like, warmer, cold, warmer, and he's trying to guide her to find the dog. And just as she gets to the car, which is where the dog is, he just looks at the camera and he just smiles. And that's, of course, when she opens the car door and the dog just falls out, and it's almost shocking because it looks so real. And there's so many instances like that. And the whole point was Haneke wanted to show how desensitized and how expectations for horror films have kind of made the American audience desensitized, essentially, because we all expect with cliches a horror film how it's going to go. There's going to be the final girl. She's going to kill the horror the horror monster at the very end of the movie, and there's all these expectations that we all expect from him. There's a scene where at the very end of the... I don't know if I really want to spoil much of it, because it's one of those films where if you go in knowing very little about it, it could really like just shock you with what it's trying to do. But there's a scene where you think one thing's going to happen, you think something great's going to happen, and then Michael Pitt's character just reverses it completely. Yeah. Literally, I mean. I don't want to spoil what happens, but there's just something that happens that makes you realize that, yeah, this film is supposed to piss you off. And a lot of American audiences interpreted that as it's making fun of you, or it's basically just a middle finger to the audience for thinking that this is going to be a horror film. But it's basically about how desensitizing horror films can be, and how TV has made people less human, and it's a cycle that keeps happening throughout the film, and it starts how each family, and I don't want to really go much into how it ends, but the beginning is the end.
All right, superb. I love Tim Roth. I've seen him more from his TV stuff recently. Obviously, he was in Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, but
Hateful Eight.
It was his TV work in Lie to Me.
I was gonna say it was Lie to Me.
I love that series.
It's a big role.
Yeah, love that series. And then Tin Star that it was in recently as well.
Okay.
He was really good in that. For a guy, Tim Roth, no formal acting training. He's not been to
really?
No formal acting training. I mean, he worked London Theatre with Gary Oldman. The pair of them, those two are really, really good friends.
I'm pretty sure they both started because they both were in that Shakespeare film, weren't they? They were both in a Shakespeare film in like the 80s. Something are dead. Their character. It's
oh god, yes, Rothstein.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. It's the two. I think it's two side characters.
From Hamlet.
Hamlet, yes, and he did the.
That makes sense.
I mean, one thing with it always makes me laugh with this, obviously useless bits of trivia nuggets that fly around, is he was considered for Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films, but he dropped out to make Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
Ooh, that was an interesting choice.
Yeah, sliding doors choice there. If he'd have gone that way and took that instead, it's. But no, I've not seen the film. You've sold it on me. If I come across it, it certainly is one that I'll be watching. With it not being a traditional horror, because like you, I'm not a massive horror fan. I like the idea of a horror film, but then always seem to get creeped out within 5 minutes and just switch it off and watch something else.
There's so many great juxtaposition scenes or moments in the film. At the very beginning, they're in their car and they're playing this, guess the classical composer and the music.
Right. And
just as they're playing it, smash cut, funny games, and it's this just heavy metal rock music that's playing with the title card and the opening credits, and it's just shocking. It's not shocking in the sense that it's making you disgusted, but it's shocking in how it makes you think it's going to be one thing, and then it takes another turn, and that kind of represents the entire film. You think it's going to be this film, but it's actually this other film, and there's so many great themes and ideas about reality and what is the fictional world that we watch TV, and is it as real as reality, and kind of goes into Matrix style concepts about if the movie is fake, what's the difference between the real world if there's no way of making it different to the fake world. And that really comes into play only around the last 10-20 minutes of the film. But yeah, you could consider it an art film, an arty done horror film, but there's so many great ideas, and it can be classified as a horror film because shocking things happen in the film, and it's one of those films that never leaves you.
Oh, okay. It's one that I'll keep an eye out and I've watched them. Moving on, what's your favourite drama?
Drama is such a vague category because it can be literally almost any other film every film, because there's a lot of films can be very dramatic.
Yes. And
this was kind of easy for me because this is a film that used to be for the longest time my favourite film.
Okay.
When I was growing up, I was 15 when I first saw it, or 14.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just one of those films where I was just very curious about it because it starred people that I knew, and I just never saw it before, and it won Best Picture in 1999.
Yeah.
And that is, of course, American Beauty.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's got a great cast there.
One of the best casted films ever. You got Wes Bentley as Ricky Fitz. You got as much as it sucks for me to say his name, but if you take away him as a human being, Kevin Spacey, his acting is amazing in American Beauty. I'm not talking about him as a monster right now. I'm just talking about his performance. It is absolutely amazing what he does to become the everyday man who realizes his own, I guess, importance. And then you've got Annette Bening as the capitalist conformist.
Yes.
And their daughter, Thora Birch, who plays Jane, who's just trying to figure out who she is, and Chris Cooper as the stern father to Wes Bentley's character, and even a small role by Alison Janney as his wife in the film. She's very subtle in the film, and you can almost barely tell it's her.
Yeah.
But she's just so small in the film, but she's great with every scene that she's in, and everyone is perfect. And I think it holds a lot for me because this is just when I was discovering. I used to really like action films and blockbusters and the Marvel stuff, and this and another film I'll mention later were the films that really made me realize that films can be more than just entertainment. It can inspire you.
Yes.
And with the story about a man who just realizes that maybe his life isn't as meaningless as he once thought, and that it's about what you make of it that makes your life important. That really stuck a nerve with me and made me think, maybe it is up to me to decide what my life is going to be, and not everyone else. And there's a lot of similarities with Fight Club in the sense that it's about a guy who just changes his way.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, what's going on? And it's just one of those films where everything for me is perfect, and the script is amazing. It's one of the best scripts ever written. The cinematography is outstanding, very subtle, and Conrad L. Hall won an Oscar for it. It's brilliant, and of course there's all the other stuff with, it's about a guy who falls in love with his teenage daughter's best friend who is underage, and there's weird, creepy ideas, but it all works for the film because I won't spoil what happens at the end, but it all comes full circle with how the character realizes his arc, essentially, and what he realizes. It's about people finding true beauty, and it may not be in the places they think, and some of them don't fulfill their character arc, and there's so many just great philosophical ideas that that some of the characters go through. Like Wes Bentley essentially plays the pretentious philosophical, I'm cool, like the Holden character from Catcher in the Rye, but he plays the pretentious guy who sees beauty in everything. And there's the scene with him and Thora Birch where they're watching the most beautiful thing that he's ever recorded, because he records a lot of videotapes, and it's just this plastic bag dancing in the wind, and he goes on about how there's just beauty. There's so much beauty in the world, and how you can find beauty in almost anything. You've just got to look hard enough to find it. And that whole monologue, that whole scene is just so powerful. And there's one thing that I love about this movie, and it's probably my favorite score of all time. The music in the film is just absolutely amazing. It bounces from comedy to drama to emotional to inspiring, and it's beautifully done by Thomas Newman. And it's one of the biggest snubs ever at the Oscars. It should have won Best Original Score, but it lost to a film no one's ever heard of, and that really that really hurts me a lot.
Standard for the Oscars most years, though. Something gets for something no one's ever heard of. It's one of those films that hit with me. And I think after I saw it at like 11 at night, and I thought, wow, this is what film can be. Yeah. It is just so beautiful, and it's just a film that I watch yearly, and just realize that it just inspires me to do something with my life. No, absolutely, it's a really good one. It's obviously it's got the iconic scene of Mina Suave on the bed of roses with the petals on there.
So
the
iconic,
yes,
and parodied. I remember watching because I'm a lot younger than a lot of people on the podcast. I remember watching Madagascar, and there's a scene where Alex the lion is imagining steak falling from the sky, and he does the whole American Beauty thing, and it's the exact same music. It's the music Dead Already, which is played at the very beginning of the film from American Beauty. It's that scene. It's do 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 do, and it's playing as the steak falls from the sky, and that's when I watched American Beauty for the first time. I was like, that's the music from Madagascar, and then that's when it came into mind that it's originally from there, and I was just like, the whole scene, the whole shot of her in the rose petals, it's iconic shot and is remembered. And I think that's a part of the reason why Conrad O'Hall won the cinematography Oscar, because red and the roses and everything just looks so gorgeous. And that scene in particular it's such a good like idea.
Yeah.
When I don't know how Alan Paul came up with that, but it's such a great idea, and I'm glad that they captured it in film, because that's one for the ages.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, brilliant.
I could talk about forever about that film. It's just there's so many things.
Yeah.
But yeah, we might want to move on, or else we're going to be here for hours.
No problem. Okay, we're doing just that then. What's your favourite comedy?
Comedy is probably the most subjective of all the genres, and
no, definitely.
Because not everyone is going to laugh at a fart joke compared to two guys talking about who's on first.
Yep.
You know, it's so tricky, and my taste in comedy is so like deadpan. It's so hard for films to really please me. But there's always this one guy who always makes great comedies, and that's Edgar Wright, of course. He makes the best comedies in my opinion, and it is of course his best film in my opinion, and that is Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, yes, yeah, very. It's obviously the British humour comes through it and appeals to me.
I'm a big fan of British humour. They do deadpan better than I think any other country. America's always light and fluffy, but just something about the UK sense of humour just always gets to me. That's why I'm a big fan of him and the Richard Ayoade and the IT Crowd and all that stuff. They're so good. But yeah, Hot Fuzz is every joke in the film there's just so many layers of the jokes, and you're gonna miss a lot of the jokes on your first watch, which is exactly what happened with me. I remember seeing it out of just curiosity, and I thought it was good because I liked some of the comedy, I really liked the action, but then it was on my second, third, fourth, fifth watch when I realized there's like 100 jokes that I missed.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Absolutely, you can watch it time after time after time and get a different joke each time. You'll miss it, you'll forget it's in there, and it'll just hit you out of nowhere, and you'll be laughing for 5 minutes about it. It's so great and there's so many. Something that Edgar Wright does so well with all of his films is that he's great at setting up a joke and then reminding people about it and then paying it off. Because there's a scene early on where Simon Pegg's character, Nicholas Angel, stops at the hotel that he's staying at. Yep.
And the old lady there who's at the receptionist, she's doing the crosswords, and she just says fascist, almost as if it's directly towards Simon Pegg, and she's like, oh, that's 7 words and all that stuff on the thing, and then he's like hag, and it's like, excuse me, it's like down there it says old whatever woman, and it's 3 words, and then they bring it back, and they're actually this time insulting each other by saying it, and that there's jokes like that, and there's early on during the carnival scene, where Dan Butterfield accidentally shoots the doctor, and he's like, oh, he's a doctor, he'll deal with it, and then that of course comes back later where Nick Frost's character accidentally shoots him again, and then they're, you're a doctor, deal with it, and there's so many setting up jokes and then paying it off that I totally didn't even remember those when the first couple of times I saw it. It was only when I realized them on my third, fourth watch that they've set up these jokes and I just did not even notice them. Yeah. And that's what made them even more funny. And it's not just the written dialogue that works so well. It's also the editing and the shot composition and the music cues and the characters acting, and everything is just so much fun. It's hilarious. It's one of the best films, and Timothy Dalton in that film, he's one of the shining moments.
Yes.
A Bond actor.
Yes.
Yeah, a Bond actor playing this. I don't really go into spoilers, of course, but there's just so many like scenes where he's just having so much fun. There's the shot of him where he's smiling, and then in the background it's his photo of him, and that's one of my favorite shots ever. I don't know why it's so funny, but it's just so funny. Yeah, and that's just why it works so well. It's also just a great like character piece of a guy who's so committed to his work. And of course, when he meets Nick Frost, who's the exact opposite, he's a bumbling buffoon who loves action movies, and of course they kind of help each other out. And That's why they work so well. That's why I think Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, and Edgar Wright, they're like the holy trinity of UK comedy.
No, without a shadow of a doubt.
Their collaboration with Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, The World's End, and I think I don't know about Edgar Wright, but both of them were on Pole, and they all just work well together with the films that they do, and I think they even worked on Tintin.
Yeah,
I think Edgar Wright wrote that, and both of them were in it.
Yes,
but they just understand each other's brains so well that you get that they are just having so much fun. And Edgar Wright's one of those directors. He's one of my favorite directors. He's probably my favorite comedy director. And every film he puts so much effort into scene transitions and the characters and their arcs, and everything about the film feels so special and important. And I think I love his later films like Scott Pilgrim and The World's End and Baby Driver, of course. But it's Hot Fuzz for me in the sense that it's a great comedy that has some really good action in it, like just really great Michael Bay action done right, and it's almost pretentious, but it's done in the way where it's making fun of the pretentious action itself, like the hero shots and all that stuff. And it's got one of my favorite lines when where the police head into the supermarket and Timothy Dalton is like, "Here come the fuzz," and everything is perfect. Yeah, best comedy of all time.
The cast, I mean, it's a classically British cast, obviously.
Oh yeah, Jim Broadbent and
Bill Nye.
Bill Nye and Steve Coogan and Martin Freeman. They all have big roles, and it still feels like they are those characters, and they feel perfectly cast.
Yes, a pre-Game of Thrones Rory McGann who plays the Hound.
Oh, so really?
Again, he's Gerb.
Oh, wow.
The big guy in the supermarket. Gerb. Yeah, that's the Hound.
So good.
That's a shame. Oh, wow. Hound. Yeah, it's but yeah, the cast, you can just go on and on and on as you're looking through it. Obviously, as a Brit looking through there, oh yeah, that's him from that thing, or that's her that was in that.
Oh, the UK people are like, oh, that's that guy from that show from the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's but yeah, a fantastic film that it's firmly with its tongue in cheek with everything through it. As you say, it's got action parts that would make Michael Bay sit back and applaud, and comedy moments that we're up with the best of them. But brilliant. Okay.
Yeah, it's a comedy that continually makes me laugh every time I watch it.
Yeah.
And has never gotten dull.
No, absolutely. Okay, kind of on the same track though. What's the film that makes you happy?
You're definitely right on the same track. This is probably the hardest question, because there's a lot of films that make me happy, but are the films themselves happy, or where do you look at it?
Yeah.
In what sense? What is like a happy film? And I just went with the film that really stuck with me, and I don't know if it's too new to consider it on the list, but it's Baby Driver.
No,
I could continue on the love for Edgar Wright. He of course does it again with Baby Driver. It's everything he puts into it is great, and I think this is his second favorite best film. It's wonderfully it's the music. It's all about the music, and that's not overshadowing the cinematography or the editing or the directing or the acting. But the soundtrack is so perfectly mixed with that film, and I think that's a lot of the reason why I really love it. It's one of my favorite soundtracks, like Bell Bottoms and Hocus Pocus and Intermission by Blur, which I never thought I'd hear in a movie.
Yeah.
And of course, Brighton Rock, which I never even heard of that song. I feel so bad for not knowing that Queen song, because it's so good. It's now on my playlist, and there's so many great songs in that film, and I think that really elevates the film, because everything's in sync, all the sound effects, and I think that's why it should have got the Oscar for sound mixing and sound editing, because it's so perfect for that film.
Yeah, it's
such a unique and inventive way that it uses sound, and I'm just having the biggest smile on my face when I first saw it, and I think that's another reason why I chose it as a film that makes me happy, because I'd heard about this film back in, I think, like 2015, late 2015, when it was announced that he was making a heist. An action comedy heist film.
Yes.
And I already imagined the film in my head, like, oh, it's going to be like Hot Fuzz with the way he uses the camera and all that sort of stuff. And in a lot of ways it is like that, but in a lot of ways it isn't. And when he finished wrapping on the film, when he finished filming in 2016, I was like, okay, I'm waiting for the trailer, and then it was going to come out in March 2017, but then it got pushed to August, and then it got pushed forward back to July because the reception at the South by Southwest festival was really, really good. And I was like just getting so hyped. That was my number 1 or number 2 most anticipated film, and I won free tickets to go see an event screening.
Oh, wow.
And this is a couple of weeks before the film, and I got to take a good friend of mine who's really into it. And actually, before I got there, I jumped a little bit. I had heard that that it was very similar to a music video that he shot,
right?
But for Mint Royale, called Blue Song, and it stars. Is it Noel Gallagher? It's Noel Fielding. Is it Noel Fielding?
No, Noel Fielding. I thought you were.
Noel Fielding, who played. It's just the music video is essentially the opening to Baby Driver. It's a guy who's playing music while a bunch of robbers are going into a building, and he's playing Mint Royale's Blue Song. Oh. And when I saw that in preparation, I saw that months ago before the Baby Driver trailer came out, and I just thought it was amazing, and the way the camera moves, and even that is in sync with the doors closing, and I just like, okay, I can imagine Baby Driver like this. And of course, the opening scene to Baby Driver, it's bell bottoms, and he's singing in the car, and the camera movements are very similar. He's got the windshields up, and everything's in sync, and that's when I had the biggest smile. I was like, this is exactly like the music video, and that's a lot of reasons why it's so much fun, because there's this great romance with Baby and Deborah, and there's so many great characters like Bats and Buddy, and they all feel real. And even, not to bring him up again, but even Kevin Spacey he's not doing anything different, but he's really fun in the film. And everybody just is having a good time. I remember the second car chase when it's played to Neat 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 by The Damned. I think there's so many great moments, like they're going up they're going through the cars, and it's on the wall kinda, and then he hits a shot there's so many great moments that happen in that car chase, and where of course he has to listen to music because that's what inspires him, that's what gets him that's why he's in the zone. And there's great music and there's great characters, and the last 20 minutes is great, and even though it ends on a happy note, so to say, even it just makes you feel so happy that you watched this great film. And there's so many great scenes, like when he's making his music, but was he slow and all that sort of stuff. It's you can't be unhappy when watching that. It's so fun, and it knows it's having fun, and I have fun when watching it. It makes me so happy.
Absolutely. I mean, when I watched it, I'd heard it was coming. I didn't know too much about it. When I watched it, just the opening scene, and then the part when he's walking to get the coffee.
It's all one take.
Yeah, all one take, and what's going on is on, and part of the lyrics on the walls or
on the graffiti and all that. I didn't even notice that on my first watch. I felt such an idiot for not noticing that, and I think it was on my second watch. I was watching it with a group of friends, and then one of them was like, "Oh, there's lyrics on the wall." Yeah. And I was like, "What?" And then I paid attention. I was like, "Oh my god, how did I not notice that?" Yeah. And then of course, a couple of weeks ago, we found out that Edgar Wright has a cameo in the window during that long take, and you can see him. He's looking at his phone, which is actually the monitor, to see how it's all going. And they left it in because it's a nice little cameo. The visual effects guy just changed the monitor to an iPhone, and I didn't even notice that. So that's a good cameo. It's a good Hitchcock cameo.
Fantastic.
So many fun moments.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite ones in there is when he's sitting there, and I think it's the one with Jamie Foxx, when they're planning the whole heist, and he's just been in there listening to music and going
playing piano.
Yeah, I have one problem. Does he know what it's all about? Kevin Spacey turns out and says, "Yeah, baby," and he just reels off everything that's been said,
every verbatim, line, everything, and
brilliant film. Flipping that onto its head, what's a film that makes you sad?
I would have to say that sad is. There's a couple of ways I kind of looked at it. I was like, could it be sad in the sense that the film is just so bad that it makes you sad
Yes.
that it exists. Because I would say something like Transformers 5, or just so many like bad movies. But I think like hitting you emotionally
Yep.
is much more powerful than just a bad movie. And it's a film from 2008 called Synecdoche, New York.
Okay.
Written and directed by Charlie Kaufman, who wrote Being John Malkovich,
Yep.
Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and The Great Anomalisa, which is a film everyone should go see. And I was almost thinking of choosing that for my film for most sad.
Mm-hmm.
He makes a lot of existential crisis films, and it can either be about love, it can be about passion, and he does it in a way where it feels so personal, but also very relatable.
Yep.
And it's one of the best performances Philip Seymour Hoffman has ever given. It's one of his more underrated stuff.
Okay.
And it's a film that it's about a theatre director who is trying to make his magnum opus. He's making a life-size replica of New York in this gigantic theatre. Mm-hmm. And it's very much like New York in this theater, in this big theater stage.
Yeah.
And he's getting actors to play actors, and he's getting other actors to play those actual actors who are playing other people.
Yeah.
And it gets so meta. There's so many there's so many the structure of the film and the layers, and throughout the film there's a guy who is playing Philip Seymour Hoffman as the person, and there's another guy who's playing that guy, and he's just trying to make this film he's trying to make a theater play that's very honest. And the thing that makes me the thing that makes me sad about the entire film is that throughout the film time is just going straight through him, because in like a scene it'll feel like 2 months has passed. In fact, in the opening scene of the film, I think like 6 months have already gone by, and it's just this one scene, because you see he's reading newspaper, and I'm just making up a date, it would be the 2nd of March 2005, and then he'll go and he'll have a drink, and it's already expired, the 18th of September 2005, and it's all in just this one cut. And then the radio, it's Halloween time again, and all that sort of stuff. And it's something that you wouldn't even notice on your first watch, but it's the second and third where you realize there's so many small little tidbits that you just wouldn't notice. And there's music in the film that is very close and is relatable to what the character Philip Seymour Hoffman is feeling. And he starts getting all these sicknesses, and he starts getting ill, and then his wife, played by Catherine Keener, who leaves him and takes their daughter to Paris, and she's also an artist. And throughout the film it just gets so melancholy and grey, and there's all these great ideas of what makes us real, what makes us special. And it very much feels like the Shakespearean play, the world's the stage and all the men are merely players.
Yes.
And are we all acting? Is our brains just sending all these electrical messages just to do something? Are we actually living, or we're all giving performances, whether we're being filmed or not, or whether it's real or not? And it goes into these ideas as what makes us human, what makes us a man, what makes us a woman. What is it? And it goes into all these ideas and philosophy, and all these philosophical ideas that just, it makes you start to question everything, but in a good way, where you should start thinking more of it. And it's very much like Birdman in the sense that you should start thinking more about what you should be doing with your life. And would you rather think about all these illnesses, unable to complete your art, and then die early, or would you prefer to always make sure that all your illnesses are checked? You don't get to finish your art and you die old. Both are terrifying. And the whole film just ends in this way where it's like there could be this light of hope, but we're all on this earth for a very short period of time, and we have to make the most of it. And it makes me just wonder what's going to happen next. Okay. What's going to happen next for me?
All right. Okay. Well, that's for that. It's certainly one that I've not seen. But it's an interesting concept to it, and I'll keep an eye on it.
Very melancholy, and
Yeah.
depending on how well you take the film, it can make you inspired, or it can make you realize that there's no hope in this universe.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, yeah. Then two things there.
I'll definitely give it. I'll definitely give it a shot. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Picking ourselves up a little bit then. Name a film you know practically know the entire script of.
That's easy. That's Pulp Fiction.
Oh yes.
Hands down, Pulp Fiction. I think there came a moment, because Pulp Fiction is one of those films where it is a part of pop culture, and the fact that it started all of these rip-offs, and a main reason was the dialogue and the script and the way these characters were so realistic in what they were speaking. And I wanted to say something like American Beauty or Sex, Lies and Videotapes, and I already went with American Beauty. I just feel like Pulp Fiction is the one that I knew first. I knew verbatim that when they're talking about the foot massages, and he's talking about, of course, what they call a burger in Paris,
yes,
and all that stuff. I know each dialogue and each word, and of course when Mia Wallace is talking about the Fox Force 5 and how she was specialty with knives, and of course, which is a little reference to Kill Bill, kinda.
Yes, yeah, a throw forward.
And then Bruce Willis's girlfriend is always wanted a belly like Madonna, and of course the gold watch story, and then the briefcase incident, and then the Ezekiel 25:17 passage. I've memorized that word for word. And then the whole ending when Jules is talking about leaving the business, and he doesn't like eating pork even though he's not Jewish, and he just doesn't like to eat a dirty, filthy animal. And then they talk about what if a pig had a good personality, and would you consider that a filthy animal? And him deciding to leave, and of course go around the world. And it's just every piece of the dialogue in that film is so like quotable and memorable. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people love Tarantino is that he just has this very specific way of writing dialogue that it feels like anyone could write it, because it's so mundane.
Yes.
And that's why a lot of young filmmakers want to make films like him, because it's like, this is the type of films I'm going to make. The ones where it's most philosophical in the mundane dialogue that they're talking about. I can do that. I can be arty, and this may be a diss on those kind of arty filmmakers who are early, but I used to be an arty early filmmaker who tried to be like Tarantino.
Yeah.
So I totally understand where a lot of people got the inspiration for Tarantino in their earlier films, and because it's exactly what I did.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Tarantino, it's his follow-up to Reservoir Dogs. I mean, that's a hell of a 1-2 as you're opening two films. It's Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. You can't get two iconic opening two films. It's absolutely out the gate with it.
Exactly, and Reservoir Dogs is that one also has a lot of good dialogue that a lot of people quote, like not doing tips, and then all that sort of stuff. And it's those two films are exactly are two of the best like film debuts ever.
Yes. When
it comes to just getting into filmmaking, it's and Tarantino did it in a way that hadn't been done before, or in that decade at least, in the 90s.
Yes.
He turned it on its head.
No, absolutely. Brilliant film. Okay, I think it's going to be a callback to someone that we've already mentioned before, but who's your favourite director?
If you asked me this a couple of years ago, I would have said Alejandro González Iñárritu, who directed Birdman.
Yep.
I could have said Steven Soderbergh. I could have said the Coens. But right now, at this time, it is Michael Haneke.
Yep.
Who, of course, I mentioned directed Funny Games US.
Yes.
But I'll just say all the films that he's directed. He did The Seventh Continent.
Yep.
71 Fragments of a Chronology of Chance. Benny's Video. Funny Games. He did a TV film called The Castle, which is based off Franz Kafka's short story.
Yep.
He did Code Unknown. The Piano Teacher. Cache. Funny Games US. The White Ribbon, Amour, and then his newest film that came out last year called Happy End.
Okay.
I think he is German or Austrian. He's 75.
Yep.
He's a prolific director who's done a lot of theatre plays before he started getting into film, and he's a director who understands that every film has to have, I wouldn't say a message, but it has to be unique in the story that it's telling. And he doesn't make very conventional story-driven films. They're more about the message drive the films, and it's not done in a pretentious way or a way where the script feels lackluster or just not properly written. Because I think his most popular film is Amour from 2012. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes.
Okay.
It won Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. He was nominated for Best Director, which is a complete surprise to me.
Yeah.
He got a Best Actress nod. He got a Best Original Screenplay nod, and it's a film about the concept of death and how do we get used to the idea that our bodies are not meant to last forever.
Okay.
And he makes very big films. He did a film called The Cachet, which is very much like Funny Games. It's about this about a husband and wife who are being tormented by these videotapes of their house, and they have no idea who's doing it. And the husband has a past where something bad happened that he had caused, and the person is coming back, and that explains any film. Any revenge thriller, but he does it in a way where the presentation is so him. And there's a great death scene that I'm not going to spoil, where it's just this long take. It's static, no cameras. There's no moving camera. It's just this still shot of someone getting killed, and it feels so powerful. And you can't move away. It's not, the camera's not doing anything to not show. It's showing you exactly what death is.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that not a lot of directors are able to really show death as powerful, because there's a lot of people who use deaths as comical. He's not a big fan of Quentin Tarantino because he uses death in a way that's almost funny and not realistic.
Yeah.
Haneke, his deaths feel powerful. They feel real, and you can feel it, and it can hurt you. It can feel really powerful. He's one of those directors who he hates modern Hollywood in the sense that he doesn't like the desensitization of what films are doing, and he feels, instead of just giving you all the messages and leaving it with an ending, he likes to leave it very ambiguous.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way where he wants people to talk about the film well after the film has finished, because that's what starts conversations and people wanting to watch the film again. And he's one of those directors who respects the audience enough for people to want to watch it again and understand the film. And that's why he's been so distant with his audience, because a lot of American audiences just don't get his films. That's why he gets a lot of praise from Europe, and I guess even Asian countries. They understand his film making, and he's one of those directors he's more of a show to tell.
Right. And
he does very little with the camera, but in a way where you can still get a lot of information out of it. And he's so good at blocking. His blocking in the film, it feels so real, but also just nicely done in the sense that you can see every angle and every bit of character movement, and it feels real. His best film is easily The Piano Teacher, if you need a recommendation or somewhere to start off with.
Okay.
It's a little long, but it's a really good film. It's Isabelle Hubert's best performance. She plays a piano teacher, and some weird sexual stuff happened in the film, and that's all I'll say.
Okay.
For that.
All right. Okay. Brilliant. So, moving on, just go completely 180, totally nowhere, out of nowhere. What's your favourite film from your childhood?
I guess compared to a lot of people on the podcast, my childhood was only 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's I can still recall a lot of moments from my childhood that defied films that I watched that defied me as a film goer, and it was a little tricky, I must say. It was hard to find that one film that kind of was just my favorite as a kid.
Yeah.
But it's hands down, and I can tell a lot of my friends who may watch this will know it. It's Spider-Man.
Okay.
It's the 2002 Sam Raimi Spider-Man film. That is probably the film as a kid that I've seen more than any other film. As a kid, I saw that at least 100 times.
No, it's also known as this topic is the one that makes me feel old. One when people come up and I was 27.
Doesn't make it feel.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
I
sorry?
was 20. I was 27 when this comes out. When this came out. And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you were saying it's one of your childhood. I'm like, oh, I'm that old, then, am I?
So yeah, because I was too young for Ep.11 because it just came out when the superhero films were getting big, and as a kid I loved Spider-Man. I saw the 90s Spider-Man cartoon show,
Yep.
and I really loved that show as a kid. And Spider-Man just always had been my favorite superhero. He was the most relatable, and I just loved his power, and I loved the superheroes he got to and supervillains he got to fight. So I didn't really grow up with the fact that it was being directed by the guy who did Evil Dead, or it was going to be it was a $100 million budget, and they got Tobey Maguire, and it had all this like innovative special effects, it was the highest grossing domestic film, or it had so many records because of that.
Yeah.
And that just, as a kid, I wasn't thinking of that. I was just thinking that Spider-Man was fighting the Green Goblin in a burning house, or all that sort of stuff, and him discovering his powers. That film is a good watch for kids because it's good storytelling. It's simple in its narrative, but it's also very like understandable for kids to be able to watch it and get it. And there's a lot of dark scenes in that film, but as a kid, I just thought that's just how it is for superhero films, because the whole ending to that film, that's one of my favorite climaxes in an action film or a superhero film ever. They're in this like abandoned building, and there's so many great camera movements and shots, and Green Goblin's kicking the shit out of Spider-Man. He gets an explosion in his face, and then it all turns when when Green Goblin pulls out a trident just for that one scene, and then he fights back, and he brings a wall down on the Green Goblin. There's so many great moments, and that whole last 10 minutes or 20 minutes I absolutely love it, because there's just so much energy that only Sam Raimi could have brought, because of course his work on Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, especially those two, he just knows how to make films feel like the energy. He's able to bring a lot from that, just the camera movement alone.
Yes.
And that's why I think he was the best choice for Spider-Man, because there's also when Spider-Man first gets his powers, he's climbing up the wall, and they actually did some really good stuff where it's actually where with the camera placement, and you actually think it's a wall, but it's actually not. It's a set made to look like he's climbing up the wall, and it's done so well. And then, of course, when he's discovering his powers, he's swinging and he hits the wall, and I always laugh every time I see that. It's so funny, and the whole "Go Web Go," and it's so funny. It's a great and superhero origin story. And then, of course, when he tries to get Uncle Ben's murderer, and that all feels so powerful. And as a kid, I could feel it. I didn't cry, but when he's holding Uncle Ben's hand, I felt so much emotion out of it, because you feel it. And then when he's after him, and all the energy and the camera and the way the camera moves, and the music by Danny Elfman, one of his best scores, or modern scores at least. It's everything in that film is just it has so much emotion, but it's so much energy. And then Willem Dafoe, one of the best casting decisions, and of course J. Jonah Jameson with J.K. Simmons is such a great supporting role that it couldn't. I don't know how that film could have been if it wasn't him. No, absolutely. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
No. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I love the film. It's up until Spider-Man: Homecoming came out. It was my favourite of the three Spider-Man ones that came out. I preferred it over 2. I prefer the original over 2. Absolutely. It just. I think
in hindsight.
Go on.
I think in hindsight, I love Spider-Man 2 more, and I think that mainly come from me as a teenager and just seeing it and more relating to the story of when he loses his powers. But for my childhood, it is my favorite film, because it's the one I've seen so many times, and that's a script, or that's just the dialogue where I can quote because I know almost everything, all the lines and all that sort of stuff. And it was the film that really jump-started the whole superhero craze.
No, absolutely.
And that and X-Men were big, and
brilliant. Okay, kind of on the same kind of track as that though. What's your favourite animated film?
as a kid growing up with Pixar in the 2000s, there was a lot of like animated movies that I got to see, and that's mainly because I was just so young, and then I grew up with those movies. And I went with one that kind of caught me off guard, because a lot of the animated films felt like they were for kids. And that's a problem I have with a lot of animated films, especially Pixar and Disney. It's just, I can't enjoy them at my age that I am now, because I know they're for kids and they're not even thinking about me. And I'm looking for stuff to enjoy, but there's just not much. There's nothing, so in the comedy especially, it's very kid friendly.
Yes.
But I went with one that I saw as a kid, and I realized that this is a very special film because of the way it treats adults, and that is Ratatouille.
Oh, yes.
Ratatouille. Yes. I don't know why nobody talks about Ratatouille on the same level as Toy Story or The Incredibles or WALL-E. It is so much better than what people think, because I think the last 20 minutes is perfect. If you're looking at the way a film's end, the 20 minutes is so perfect because it doesn't do it in a way that feels so like it's the happy ending or they beat the antagonist or this. It's very cathartic with the characters, and it's so subtle with the way that it works. And because I feel like spoilers isn't a big deal, because I think a lot of people have seen this film, and it's one of those films where everyone's seen because it's a Pixar film, and it's about a rat that wants to cook. And from that, it sounds like a kid's film, but it goes through the ideas of what is it? Anyone can be an artist, and there's a great line from the end of the film where Ego's like, not everyone can be a good artist, but a good artist can come from anywhere.
Yes.
And that's a quote that sticks with me, in the sense that I can make it, and it's about cooking, but it could apply to music, it could apply to film, paintings, any sort of art form. And that's why I watched that film as an adult, as a teenager, even, and enjoy it as much as I did as a kid. And I love the music by Michael Giacchino. That's probably his best score, in my opinion. I think French music just sounds so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
there's so many good music in that film.
No, it's, as you say, it's obviously directed by Brad Bird, who also did The Incredibles, and is his most well known, obviously, for that. Everyone's waiting for his next big one.
His Incredibles 2, which I'm not really a big fan of looking after for.
I'm not quite sure where to sit on that. The first was almost a perfect superhero film. That I don't think it needed a sequel to be able, but
I think it only got a sequel because a lot of people really liked the first one, and it was just a matter of, if a lot of people are going to see it, well, then we definitely have an audience, so let's just make a sequel. And I like Brad Bird when he makes his original stuff, because he's one of those few directors who does animated films and then live action films, and I'll have to see what more live action films he did, because I think Ghost Protocol is great. That Mission Impossible film is great. I'm not a big fan of Tomorrowland, but he had some good ideas in that. I just wish the story was more structured, and there was a good payoff to what Tomorrowland was. But Brad Bird it's not about just being a good animated director. He's just a good filmmaker. Because there's a lot of animated directors who are just animated directors. He's a good director in the sense that he knows what to do in both animation and live action. And I think his best film is Ratatouille, because he gets it. He understands what the character, what the audience is looking for.
Just see. You say that it's a good film. It won the Oscar, obviously, for best animated feature,
best animated,
up against Surf's Up, who I quietly enjoy. That it's just, you can't help but tap your feet along to it, and
that's such a weird film, that Surf's Up movie. It's like it's done in a way like a doco. I saw that with my nan, and that's a very interesting film. So weird that it feels so old now, 10 years or more than 10 years ago now, but. And then I think, did it also go up against Persepolis?
Persepolis, yes.
Yeah, yes, I have not seen that. That looks interesting, but I feel like it getting the best animated Oscar was a given, just because it's Pixar and. But I think also I really like his Brad Bird's speech when he won the Oscar, when he was like, when he was young. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but when he was young, his dad was like, "What do you want to be?" "I want to be a filmmaker." "But what if but what if you can't get a degree? Well, then I'm going to have to apply for one. What if you can't get to school? I'm going to try. What if film didn't exist? Then I would invent it. And he would just talk about why he would want to be a filmmaker and all the help that he got from certain people and what inspired him to make it. And the whole film is about creativity, and anyone can be an artist. And I think that's a main reason why I loved it as a kid, and a main reason why I loved it as an adult.
Nice. Brilliant. Okay. All right, moving on then. What's your favourite quote from any film?
This was tricky. This is really, really hard because there's a lot of quotes that are just so much interesting.
Yeah.
The subtext and the layers, and I don't know if overanalyze a favorite quote, or is it just funny to you? And I went with one that I just love how serious it is, but also how comical, and it's from another one of my favorite films, Donnie Darko, and it's when Frank the bunny rabbit meets Donnie at the movie theater, and he just appears because I don't know if I really want to get into much of Donnie Darko, but
oh, that's a lot we could talk for hours about.
Oh my god, that one that is an absolute clusterfuck. There's Donnie's like, why do you wear that stupid bunny suit? And Frank just turns his head and says, why do you wear that stupid man suit?
Yeah.
And there's so much to that line of dialogue where it's like, not only is he just saying, well, I can wear a bunny suit because why the hell not? But it's also just like, are we all just wearing man suits? Is there more to that dialogue than just he's trying to poke fun at Donnie for asking why he's wearing a bunny suit? But are we just bodies? Are we just shells? And what if we don't have to wear a man suit? All that sort of stuff. I find that just so interesting, and it's one of those quotes. Just it's so absurd, but also just so surreal in what it's trying to poke fun at. In maybe we're all wearing stupid man suits, and there's something more for us.
No, absolutely, yeah, fantastic. As I said, I'm not going to start getting into a conversation about Donnie Darko because
we could talk on for hours.
Yeah,
that
is
one of those.
Hour yet. Fantastic. Moving on then. Who's your favourite actor or actress?
I'm not. When it comes to actors, is hard to find a favourite because I feel there are so many, more so than directors, that what is that one that has consistently done great in every film that they're in?
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of, as someone who wants to be a director, and I like character actors.
Yes. Because
they can play any character, and they put so much time, not like a method actor, but they're fine being the side character, they're fine being the villain, they're fine doing whatever. They just feel like that character, even though they don't do much to transform. It's just the way that they are.
Yes. And
it is Willem Dafoe, surprisingly enough.
No, absolutely.
He's had such an interesting filmography.
Yes. From
Platoon to Live and Die. I think he's in Live and Die in LA, and Wild at Heart, and then of course Shadow of a Vampire. I think
yes.
He plays Max Schreck in that film,
yes,
and then of course Spider-Man, and then even like in smaller films like Antichrist, or even Mr. Bean's Holiday. Yeah. It's such a weird thing for him to be in that when he's in a film called Antichrist, and then he's also in this kids film where he plays a pretentious arty director who's made a film at Cannes. And every time I see him, I'm just so happy and delighted to see him because he always does so well. And I think it also has to do with the fact that he has a great voice. Yeah, it's one of those voices you just know.
Very much so. He's a wide and varied filmography is one way of putting it. I would say Platoon. He was in Mississippi Burning.
Mississippi Burning, I forgot that. Yeah, it's great in that.
Another a culturally significant film, let alone a good film in its own right. But then he pops up in Speed 2.
Yeah, he's varied in his filmography because I don't think he's like an actor who'll take a film because of the message or any sort of stuff like that. I think he's just doing it because he wants to play the character. he just loves acting, and there's so many memes of him just being borderline insane, like the faces he make and all that. And there's a couple from Speed 2 that he does, and I think that's why I really like him, is that he seems insane, but he also just seems like the nicest guy ever. Like he seems so like grateful for the films that he does, and he's like, if you look at Speed 2 and then you look at his role in the Florida Project, where he's playing this really nice motel owner and the receptionist, and he's just so nice about everything, and he's trying to help this woman out, and he got a Best Supporting Actor nod for that, and I would have loved to have seen him win. I know he wouldn't have won, but he's just one of those actors who's so recognizable because of his voice or because of certain films that he's in, and he's just so endlessly interesting.
No, brilliant. Okay, moving on. Here we go. Now we get to two of the most controversial on this list of questions. Yeah, what's your most overrated film?
Oh, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this. It's The Dark Knight.
Whoa. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Where's my button from a big siren?
I'm so sorry, man, but I've got reasons, and I'm going to explain them why.
Okay.
Everybody has that one film. Sorry.
Yep. Like I say, these need to be good.
Yeah. Everyone has that one film that everybody praises.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, this is the best film ever made. Everybody should go see it. And when you hear that, you're like, okay, I'm going to go see it. And I think a lot of reason why I want to go see Dark Knight is because I was probably 10 when it came out.
Yep.
And I, as an Australian, I knew who Heath was. He grew up in Perth, which is where I'm from.
Yep.
So there's a lot of relatability. He went to a school that's not far from where I am, and I got to see the doco that was about him months before it came out because I was in film school, and of course, which you know it is. And I've been to the Heath Ledger school, and everybody talked about that performance, and I think that performance is when he died, is what made people realize that this is a very special film. Mm-hmm. So I went in and I went to see it. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna watch it, and I think after the first scene, I was like, there's a lot of problems that I'm noticing already, and it could be just small problems like when the bus hits into the bank and the guy falls not properly, or there's no blood. Like the PG is something that really just upsets me because there's no violence.
Yeah. And
it's trying to be realistic. And there's a scene where the Joker slurist of the boss, the mob guy.
Yep.
Michael J. White, I think it is.
Michael J. White, yes.
The guy that was in Black Dynamite.
Yes.
He slits his wrist, and you don't see any blood. You just see a reaction of this one guy, and then he falls to the ground. I'm like, what? Did I miss it? That's a problem, because I think that's why Nolan gets a lot of money, lots of productions for his film, is that he never. It's always a PG rating.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem I had with Dunkirk, is that bodies are being destroyed. There's no blood or arms and all that sort of stuff, and that's a lot of big reason why I just did not like The Dark Knight. There's also the fact that it's not a Batman movie. Batman has very little to be in it. He doesn't have much of a character arc. It feels like it's the Joker movie.
It is a Joker.
Everyone talks about the Joker. Yes. If you take away the Joker in that film, it falls apart because the film's about chaos and the necessary evil that needs to be done in order for the good to be revealed, or for the good to inspire people. But there's just so much that I just don't understand why, because the Joker he's an interesting character, and Heath Ledger, oh my god, bless his soul, one of the performances ever. It is probably the best superhero performance ever, and I'm not going to take that away. I just think that his death really, it was because it was highly publicized, and of course him just being in the movie, it really, I think a lot of people elevated the film without really thinking about the film itself. They elevated the performance and thinking that the performance made the film better. And a lot of reasons that I don't think it's a bad movie. I'd give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's number 4 on IMDb top 50 films,
yeah,
over films like Lawrence of Arabia or or Raging Bull or Casablanca or Citizen Kane. It just does not seem right. Everyone gives that a 10 out of 10. There's a Watch Mojo video, the top 10 best films of all time, and The Dark Knight's there. I'm like, it's only been 5, 7, 8, 9 years. You can't really call it one of the best films of all time. There needs to be there needs to be time, and I don't think 10 years. I think roughly 10 years you need
10,
it. And
10 years this year, yeah.
10 years this year, but everyone's been calling it the best film.
Yes,
a couple years after it come out, and that's why I think it just is overrated, because everybody loves this movie. It's every average film guy's favorite film, and everyone talks about the realism and the way that the film is, and it's like, but did you watch the same movie that I did? It's just so many problems that I had, like the PG violence is the big thing. It's a big issue for me, because it's just everyone says it's a realistic portrayal of superheroes, but where's the violence? Because the violence is very real, and without that, it just feels like it kind of falls apart. And then Chicago looks very different to the city that Gotham was in the first film, because there's all the monorails and all that stuff. That doesn't even carry on into The Dark Knight. Just decided to shoot it in Chicago. So there's also just these continuity errors that I hate. And then I think Rachel's character is just unlikable, and there's just certain things that she does that I just don't really like. And then I think, there's just so many weird things that just I never really understood. And people like the film, and I'm happy to like the film. I just don't think it is as good as everybody thinks it is.
Okay. Look.
And it's I'm sorry, just one more thing I want to say.
No?
It's everybody rewatches it and all that sort of stuff because I love the film. But every time I rewatch it, it gets worse because I just notice so many things. I like films that get better with the more times you watch it, like Hot Fuzz, like Synecdoche. With The Dark Knight, it's one of those films where you get everything from your first watch, so there's only one way you can go, and that's down. Yeah. For liking the movie. So every time I watch it, it gets worse for me.
Okay.
So I hope you don't want to kill me now after that.
Cause... Not me. I suggest you don't get in a room with Chris Doman. I think.
Yeah. I don't know what he'll say, but nah.
No. Okay. Look, as I say, it's one of the most controversial ones. Here's the point. Then we've got a Facebook page for the podcast. Come on, get on there. Let's get on there. See these comments about this. Let's see if we get some people agree.
I'm going to see what everyone's got to say.
Yeah, this should be a good one. Okay, flipping that on its head. What's your most underrated film?
It's a film from a director that a lot of people know, but it's just a film that no one's ever heard of. It's a film directed by Steven Soderbergh, who everybody knows for the Ocean's trilogy and Magic Mike, and he's got a new film shot on an iPhone coming out soon, and all that stuff. And he does those weird experiment sort of stuff. And it's a film from the 90s that he did called Schizopolis.
Okay, not seen it.
And it's I don't think a lot of people have, because it got a very limited release. It was shown at Cannes, but a lot of people booed because they just didn't understand it. It has like a 32. It has a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Right. It didn't make its money back, and it's sort of the reason why Soderbergh kind of is now a big director, because he had made a couple of films that just failed at the box office or just weren't critically well received. He did like King of the Hill that didn't make a lot of money, and he did The Underneath that was just not that good, and he has said that it's his worst film.
Yeah.
But then he was like, I need to make something that's gonna fill my creativity right back up. Okay. And so he did Schizopolis, and it's an experimental comedy from '96, and it's very hard to explain. It's so weird, the structure, and you can just find like the best scenes on YouTube, and you'll see why. Yeah. The opening of the film is Steven Soderbergh walking onto the theater and saying, if you do not understand any of what you see, please know that it is your fault. You have to watch the film again and again to understand it. It's very meta in the way it is, because Soderbergh he plays the main actor.
Okay.
He's the main character in the film, and there's doppelgangers. There's three arcs to the film. There's 3 acts. And there's literally just a number just telling you this is the first act and this is the second act. And there's so many weird characters. There's a bug exterminator named Elmo. Oh god, I think it's like Elmo Oxygen or something like that. And he's played by David Jensen, and he just says all this random dialogue that just doesn't make any sense. And then when Soto greets his wife, who's actually played by his ex-wife in the film, and I think at the time she was his ex-wife,
right?
And they just greet each other in the most generic way, where he literally says generic greetings and all that sort of stuff, where it's breaking down communication. And that's the whole idea of what the film is that what if you take away communication? And it's both not just in the film, but it's also the audience's communication with the film and how they view it. And what happens when you take away that communication? Are people going to like it even more? Are people going to hate it even more? And it's one of those films where a lot of people would like it because of its ideas and what it's trying to do, and then there's those people who just hate it because they just don't understand it, or it's just so incomprehensible.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. So
it deserves a lot more praise. It's one of those weird films.
No, absolutely.
That you've never heard of.
Yeah, heard of Soderbergh. Never heard of that one. Okay. So, name a film that no one would expect you to like.
This is fun. This is so much fun. There was a couple of films, and they're guilty pleasures, and I just don't know if there was other films that I really wanted to go with, but I just felt I really feel comfortable kind of talking about them. But this one I feel pretty okay with. It's called 13 Going on 30, and I'm sure a lot of people know of it.
Yep.
In Australia, for some reason, it was called Suddenly 30.
Okay.
And it's a film about a 13-year-old who wishes to be 30, and then she wakes up the next day and she's 30, and she's played by Jennifer Garner, and then I don't know why I like this movie. That's so weird.
Yeah. It's got. I'll be honest with you. It's one of those ones that people will probably never pin that on you to like it. It's got a hell of a cast though.
It's got a good cast. Like Andy Serkis, who's not doing any motion capture. Judy Greer, Mark Ruffalo.
In it. Yeah, it's.
And I saw that before I saw The Avengers, so when I realised that's the guy playing the Hulk, I was like, oh, okay, I can get on board with this. And it's also got a good soundtrack. Like there's Madonna, there's Bruce Springsteen, there's Michael Jackson's Thriller, which is done in a very famous scene where they're all dancing to Thriller. It's weird because it's just like it's a romantic comedy. It's a fantasy romantic comedy, and I'm a straight white guy who loves me some art films.
Yes. And
then when I tell people, I really like this rom-com called 13 Going on 30, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
You get some eyebrows raised, and it's one of those. It's a charming, like, cute film about someone who just realizes that maybe it's okay to be your age and all that sort of stuff, and it's very like a guilty pleasure.
Fantastic. Okay then, back to the serious questions. What's your favourite classic?
Oh wow, this is cool because classic is like you could say Citizen Kane or Casablanca or films that are black and white, and I went with it is technically a classic because it's 80 years old, or 90. I guess it's almost 90. It's a Russian film.
Okay. And
I'm sure no one's, they're going to be the arty people watching this like, oh, okay, I get it. And then there'll be those people like, what?
Yeah.
It's called Man with a Movie Camera.
Okay.
It's a 1929 film directed by Dziga Vertov. And it's one of those city films where it's about the city.
Okay.
It's really weird because it's almost a documentary, and there's a film movement in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s called the Soviet montage, and this is when film was still very young. It wasn't even 20 years old yet, or 30, and there was all these theories about what makes film special from the other art forms, and there's of course the special Kuleshov effect, which is if you cut from a guy's face to a bowl of soup, and then you cut back to the guy's face, you know he's hungry.
Yeah.
Then you cut from a guy's face to a girl or a woman, and then you cut back to him, you know that he's in love, or that's his wife.
Right.
And they realized, the Soviet montage, they realized that editing is what made film special to the other art forms. And one of the guys, Ziga Vertov, decided that he wasn't a big fan of the Kuleshov effect or the Soviet montage, but he was still a part of it. He realized his own way that you can tell stories about literally anything. Yeah. And he decided to tell a story about just normal, everyday people in the city. And he has this, and there's these great shots of this big camera, and then there's a little guy on the camera with an even smaller camera, and weird images like that. And it pioneered so many editing techniques. There's the split screen, there's the Dutch angles, there's the camera on a rail track, and it just looks into the everyday people's lives. And it also is very meta because it looks into the editing room, and it shows, and it's showing people, and showing I think it's Ziga Vertov's wife, who was the editor, and she's editing the film. And it also shows the cinema seats, and it gets very meta, and it just looks at all these people in this city. There's a couple who are having a fight. There's a couple of people who are having a baby, and it looks at all these ideas of the city. And yeah, it's one of those weird films that I think a lot of people should see. And my phone wallpaper is the famous shot of the eye with the camera. I think if you just look up "Man with the New Camera" on Google Images, you'll find a shot of an eye with in the camera of a camera, and it's just one of my favorite shots in film that shows what is the difference between the human eye to a camera, to a camera lenses. There's so many cool ideas in that film.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Right. Totally different to that, then going on a completely different track, but what's the film with the best soundtrack?
Best soundtrack, hands down, Trainspotting.
Okay.
Oh my god, Trainspotting is one of my favorite films. It is one of the films I'm so obsessed with, and a big reason is the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I said this before, but I'm like an old man when it comes to music. I hate modern music, and what's great about the soundtrack to Trainspotting is that it's three parts. The first part is the 70s psychedelic drug-induced music of Iggy Pop, Lust for Life, and then Lou Reed's Perfect Day. Yeah. And then you also have music like Temptation during the dance club scene. And then there's the 90s indie bands like Blur. And then it goes into the techno underworld music that happens in like the last 30 minutes, where it's Born Slippy, and then I think Closeted Romantic and all that sort of stuff. And it's three different types of music that happen during the UK. And I'm a fan of UK. I love their movies, I love their art, I love their music and all that. I think their music is like one of my favorite things about the UK. So it always just, it's endlessly interesting, the music and the choices from, I think every time you think of Lust for Life, you're just thinking of Trainspotting. Yes. Like the first 1 second, dun dun dun, and it's you're just thinking of Renton running down the streets of Edinburgh, being chased by the police. It's so it's so in pop culture, and a lot of reasons is just why that film works is the music. And that's why I like Danny Boyle, that he just knows what music works well with films. Yeah, be interesting to see his Bond, that for sure. Yeah, I'm so looking forward to that. That will be interesting. I don't think there'll be any music or soundtracks, but he's he's the most interesting of directors working today, and what he does with lighting and camera, and it'll be interesting what he does with Bond. But yeah, just Born Slippy is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's easily in my top 10, and that song just is so amazing, and it works so well with the end of the movie, and I love it. Okay, brilliant. Okay, we've got ourselves to the end. The last question. What's your favourite film franchise? This was easy. It's and I think a lot of it just has to do with my Australian heritage, and it's Mad Max. Okay. Yeah. Mad Max is. I grew up with Mad Max. A lot of people did, but my mum is what got me into Mad Max. Mm-hmm. The first one I saw was Thunderdome, because that's my mum's favourite. Yeah. And there's of course the famous Thunderdome fight where he fights where he fights Blaster and he's doing all the flips. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And then, of course, I didn't really think it was a great film because the whole second act is very, like the whole kids and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it takes a different turn. And then, of course, I went back and I saw the Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Road Warrior, and it was a good film. I really loved it. The action scenes and everything. I think at the time that was my favorite action film because the car chases and the whole ending to that film on the truck and the subversion of what you think with the gas and all that sort of stuff. You think it's the tank, and then when the gyro captain looks at Max and he gives him like that look of like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
they hit the gas in the oil in their bus. They're the bus, and so that just like they duped him. And it's a great Australian franchise. It's like one of the few only Australian franchises we have because every other country has that franchise.
Yeah, I said
the UK has Bond. Yeah, exactly. And then America have maybe Star Wars or there's so many franchises that they have, and Australia has that one franchise that I can say, you know what, Australia can make good films. And then, of course, the first one is just a great revenge thriller that was on a very small budget that a lot of people saw and that made so much money. And I think at the time that was the most grossing movie from budget to the box office. Because it was like a $100,000 budget and it made $100 million, and it was such a cultural impact for people.
No, absolutely.
Not just Australian.
Absolutely, and obviously then, tying it all back, 30 years after Thunderdome comes Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron in Fury Road.
Fury Road, yeah. I remember hearing about that film in 2012 when they were filming it. And then they released those photos. I was like, "Is this real?
Yeah.
Is this actually going to happen?" And then I had to wait 3 more years. And then I found out that John Seale's doing the cinematography, who's a great Australian DP. He won an Oscar for The English Patient. He shot Cold Mountain. He's done some really good stuff, and he had come out of retirement to shoot Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes, obviously. And George Miller directed again, keeping it going.
Of course, George Miller, yeah. This is his franchise, and I feel like he couldn't give it to anyone else because he understands it. And it also just, he's like 72 and he hasn't lost his touch with directing. It feels like he's just gotten better with age. He's like a fine wine. Yes. I don't get it. he does it better than directors half his age, and he put so much work into this film because he'd been working on it for 10 years, and I was just so happy to see an action film, an Australian action film that is not that feels Australian and that is getting all of this recognition from around the world, because then of course that revitalized Miller's career, because now he's working on another next sequel.
Yeah.
He got to be the president at Cannes the year later. It feels like everybody loves that film and everybody ranks it as one of their favorite action films.
Yeah.
Or one of their favorite films of that year.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's first time I watched it, I enjoyed it, but I was very much of a it was all right.
Yeah, it was good.
Watching it again, I got a little bit more out of it. I mean, when I did the very first episode of this, I did my list. It was one that I mentioned on my overrated because it wasn't. It didn't. I mean, I got Logan on that as well. It was ones that I enjoyed it, but everyone was the best picture. It needs to be up there for nominations. It needs to win.
I don't think it deserved that much praise.
No.
But I do think that I was just happy that a lot of people really liked it. I thought it was just a really good action movie.
No. Okay.
And just a couple more things I just wanted to quickly. I know we're going for almost 2 hours, but I'm sorry about that.
Not a problem.
I just love the fact that like the editing and the production design, it felt real, and it felt that it is a film that it didn't really matter how the continuity was with the other films, but the franchise itself, it feels very episodic and very like it's just like legend based. I just imagine it's a bunch of stories told by people about this guy named Max, and each one feels unique in its own ways. And I think that I'm just happy that Australia has that one franchise that a lot of people enjoy over overseas.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. And we are done. Thank you once again for this week's guest, Jake Maringoni. Jake, before we go anywhere, have you got anything to plug? Any pages or any feeds or anything like that?
I'd like to say I'm on Twitter at Pretentious Hack, P and the H are caps. I am on Facebook. You can see me on the Jack of All Trivia YouTube channel, and there will be trivia team tournament. I'm also doing a bunch of other stuff that you could see if you watch those channels. I just want to say thank you so much for letting me get on this. I saw I saw a bunch of episodes, and I just like if I feel like I just really wanted just to talk about movies because I love movies and I love talking to people who are just as passionate as me. No. So thank you so much. This is a lot of fun. I hope it wasn't boring for you because we were talking for about 2 hours. And we're going. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about.
No, absolutely not a problem. No, thanks for coming on. It's been great. Just to remind everyone listening, we are on iTunes and Podbean, so please download the episodes, follow the Podbean feed, subscribe via iTunes, rate, review. It really does help me sort of grow this little vanity project of mine, really. If you fancy being sitting on here as a guest on yourself, you can email the podcast on thatmadeyourlist@outlook.com. We're on Twitter ourselves at thatmadeyour. We've got our own Facebook page, as I mentioned before, That Made Your List, where you can find all the old episodes as well as a pinned post of the questions that are asked. Please get involved on those, put your own post upon there, comment on the feeds from there. Let me know if I'm harsh. Let me know if you disagree with Jake about the Dark Knight. Let me know.
I'm sure people will.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have one or two on there. Please, though, be polite. Don't be rude with these comments. Okay, I've been Dave Goodger. He's been Jake Maringoni. And this has been That Made Your List.